some quick introductions. We got a couple little kind of points, just things that we're gonna kind of talk about, and we're gonna explain to that. But a lot of it, what you're gonna get out of this tonight is probably what you put into it. So there's gonna be a lot of time for questions. We actually have a couple of our freelancers in here. We'll ask them to introduce themselves quickly as well. So afterwards, even when we finish up, if you want to do some one-on-ones with any of us, we can do that too, and you can actually talk to some of the actual real-life freelancers that are in the wild. So let's start with introductions. Mr. Curtis, why don't you start?
My name is Michael Curtis. I'm the Director of Product Development for Dungeon Crawl Classics, and as I say, all associated things which end with CC, they go in my game puts out. I've been working with Joe Goodman, starting as a freelancer in 2008, so I've been in this industry for now 15 years. And sitting next to me is a man who actually, precedes my presence at Goodman Games.
So I'm Harley Stroh. I think it's nearly 20 years now that I've been working for Goodman Games as a
My name is Chris Doyle. I'm the counterpart to Mike. I'm the 5E guy, the Director of Product Development for the 5E side of the house, which I know is kind of a bad word these days, but so cut me some slack, please, a little bit. So I've been freelancing with Goodman Games. I predate Harley as a freelancer. So you're seeing a pattern here. Both Mike and myself, we work for Goodman Games full time. And we started out as freelancers, so that's the ultimate goal. Everybody in this room in 20 years, we want to see you working for a game company of some sort, maybe Goodman Games. And I joined Goodman Games full time 3 years ago as of Monday, because Jen kind of made and that was for the year we don't talk about. So, and I'd like to introduce my compatriot over here on the podium.
Hi, I'm Brian McKenzie, and I teach at Maynooth University in Ireland, and I teach basically academic writing, professional writing, and I'm the junior person. I've been freelancing with Goodman Games only since basically the pandemic or so, and my university is setting up some game design degrees and programs, and so I'm arguing, it's not just computer games! We can't just do computer games, and so that's where my hill that I'm dying on.
Well, thank you. Yes, please die on that hill for us. We appreciate it. So we have a couple freelancers in the room here. If you guys would just stand up and just introduce yourself and maybe just say a quick thing about who you are. So Rick, stand up. Jillian, you can stand up. You count.
Hey folks, I'm Rick Maffei. I've been freelancing for Goodman Games since 2005. Sorry, we've seen my butt before. It's been almost 20 years.
Joe Rosso, I freelanced for you guys for a couple of years, starting back, and I'd say thanks to the opportunities that Chris and his team gave me, I've now got a full-time job with Ghostfire. Ghostfire is a great company. And
another success story. If we get them ready, we're in the minor leagues, we get them ready, and then they graduate to the big leagues. And Jillian, you're not going to escape this. Tell everybody who you are, at least.
I primarily work on the customer service team, so I guess I'm a bit of a newcomer. So if you were to email us at info@Goodman Games, I'm possibly one of the people who would answer you.
So this is kind of a joke. So we deal with freelancers all the time. I mean, there's very few full-timers that work at Goodman Games. So primarily, everybody who does the real work is freelancers. So that's writers, that's editors, that's artists, and even some graphic design lately. So unfortunately, our art director is not here at Gen Con this year. So, however, if that's what you're interested in, if you're interested in art or graphic design, you can still talk to us afterwards, and we'll make sure we get you the contact information of the person you can talk to, and you can reach out to them. So it's not just writers in the room and everything. So.
Although you will be getting the word monkey experience from us.
Yes, because that's what we do. Yeah, we're the word monkeys, so that's kind of the perspective that we're going to get. So, but like I said, you can certainly ask questions regarding that, because Mike and I, especially, we deal on all sides with basically we see the product from conception to hiring the freelancer, to the development, to the editing, to the artwork, to the layout, to the proofing, to when it's off to the printer, and then we finally say. So first thing that's very important, and this is not uncommon just for Goodman Games, but we do not accept unsolicited submissions. actually legally we could get in a lot of trouble if you just send us a complete adventure and say, hey, I've got a great vampire adventure, check it out. If we look at it and then we say, even if we are nice and we say we don't want it or we don't need it, and then 2 years later we publish a vampire adventure and then you come running saying, oh, you stole all my ideas and everything, that's why we can't look at it, okay? So it's really a legal thing. So we will, we get emails from folks all the time. Customer service normally gets them and then they usually funnel them over to us. That's fine, but do not send us a complete adventure or your campaign setting that you've been working on for 10 years. We don't have the time, we don't have the bandwidth, and that's not what we're looking for. When we hire our freelancers, it's specific projects. So we will tell you what we need. You don't say, hey, I'm gonna do a 25,000 word adventure for us. We say, no, we don't need that right now. This is what we need. We need a Dying Earth 5,000 word adventure. So that's kind of how it goes. So by all means, send us an email to info@goodmangames.com. And if you want to include a sample, your resume is good, so we want to see what your other publications are. And then, you can send us like 1,000 word sample or something that kind of shows off your writing ability. We do open calls from time to time. That's how I actually found Brian and Joe in the back. We did an open call and we actually received over 100 submissions. We went through them and we created a scoring rubric for them and everything, and we pulled that down to 13. And we're still using most of those freelancers today, so that's kind of worked out pretty good. But we're always looking for new talent. It doesn't stop looking for new talent because we do a lot of really fun, exciting projects, and we're always doing different things, and we always have a need to look at more people. That being said, you're not going to get assigned the next, original adventures reincarnated right out the door. We get that all the time. Everybody's like, my favorite adventure is, Tomb of Horrors. I want to do that. It's like, that's great, that's awesome, but yeah, that's not going to be your first one out the door. You need to do some smaller things for us, some monsters, some, supplemental material for like our yearbook or something like that. Before you actually kind of, we need to work with you a couple times to kind of get used to you. You need to get used to us before we move on. Right?
And the thing about it is that we're always looking for people. We're always looking for samples of your writing and such. But there may be a long lead time between when we first start initiating contact and when we might actually say, okay, we have something for you. Because Chris and I, we're working on a production schedule, and we might have something for up into 2004. We've already had projects in the work. We have people assigned to it and everything. Harley is currently working on stuff for me right now.
Yep.
So we might not have that thing. We might not have a space to put your 500 words or 1,000 words into just yet. But we will have. We will keep your contact information. You might get that email from us somewhere like, oh yeah, I remember these jerks. I sent them an email and they never got back to me.
Yeah.
Now they want to give us a job.
Yeah, that's a great point. People don't realize how far out we work on these projects. So Dungeon Denizens, which we kickstarted a couple of months ago, we started working on that in 2020. We started working on it. We didn't kickstart it until 2023. So it's in layout right now. But it's still, it's his first project. It was the first project that Joe worked on for us. But and it hasn't been published yet. so that's we've had that issue too. I've had people reach out to me and we're like, all right, we're interested in working with you, and then they're like, okay, when's the book coming out? And they're like, is it going to be out in 6 months? And we're like, oh no. And they're like, okay, I'll go somewhere else. It's like, good luck with that. So it's like, we'll deal with that.
But the good thing is that we're doing generally paying on acceptance.
Yes,
not public.
And that is not typical of most companies. Most companies will pay you on publication, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole that is payment, because again, I guess this probably needs to be.
deep one.
All right, we're gonna go. We're gonna go there.
Let's just cover that right away.
Yeah.
If you're here to freelance, you want to make a career out of it, marry rich.
Yes, that's what I did. That's what I did. So, and that's why I was able to quit my real job and actually teach my Goodman Games, because my wife does okay. But yeah, this is something where very few people are doing this full time. It's not impossible. It's certainly not impossible, but we're looking for people that have a passion for writing or illustrating or whatnot, and are really looking the money is just kind of secondary. They just want to see their name in print. they want a chance to be a volunteer. I use that term loosely at our booth some year because these folks all come and they work at our booth and everything, and some people really like that. I mean, we've all done it. Before we joined the company, we were volunteers at the booth for years and years and years, and I've done it for other companies too. Most of them which are out of business now. So warning, it's Goodman Games. So just be aware that the timelines on just how far out how we go. But we do keep all the folks that reach out to us and that come through customer service. We have folders on our desktop where we keep all that stuff. We might not read it that day it comes in, but there are sometimes we're like, okay, we need to find some more people. Let's go back and look. We've gotten a couple over the last 6 months. We've gotten a handful of submissions. Let's take a look at them and see if they're a good fit. So we will review those and then we'll reach back out.
And one of the advantages I'm going to say is that while you're waiting to be heard from us, you have plenty of time. And I think we can all agree with this. Is I think if you are in the process of looking to work as a freelancer, the number one thing that you can do, besides have a rudimentary grasp of the English language and be able to string words together, is know the game that you are submitting yourself to. Because we often get people, especially from the DCC line, I'll get said, well, I've written for old school essentials or 5 edition D&Ds. I hear DCC is fun or everything, and but they think that their skill set is applicable across the board. And I'm sure probably get a chance is that when you're writing for DCC, actually when you're writing for anything, you should know the system that you're pitching for. I mean, I've had the not only for DCC, I've written for 5e. I've actually adapted stuff from AD&D. I've written for Metamorphosis Alpha. But it was all a matter of learning that system and actually playing it and going, knowing the differences between what an average DC in D&D is versus what an average DC in DCC, and that's a lot of DCs in one sentence.
So Mike, once upon a time, before you took your position, Joseph would kind of look at third-party publications in the BCC line and found Terry Olson that way, and Thorin, and those sort of folks. Is that still part of your process?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I kind of was going to say that towards the end or everything, because for those of you who want to get started going, for the DCC side of things, we have a very lenient third-party process. So if you want to start writing stuff, in fact, actually one of the best ways to, aside from marrying rich, the other big word of advice I give that if you want to freelance in that is get your work out there. And I mean, there used to be a lot of gatekeepers. I mean, there's still gatekeepers in the industry, but for the most part, it used to be like you would write something and you would send it to the Crystal Tower in Lake Geneva or wherever, and it would sit in a slush pile. For us, there's not that anymore. I mean, there's DM's Guild, there's self-publishing, there's stuff. You can get stuff out there. I started my job because in 2008, I had a blog. Remember blogs? Remember those? They were like TikTok, but except they didn't move around, for those of you who are really young. But I did a thing called the Dungeon Alphabet, and out of nowhere, I got an email from Joe Goodman saying, hey, I read this, I think it's really cool. Have you ever considered developing this into a commercial RPG product? And I said, well, now I have. So I did some research, and he looked legitimate, and literally that's how it started, with me going that stuff. But if I hadn't, had my stuff out there, Joe wouldn't have found it. And now, between the self-publishing and everybody can, put their stuff on the web in one form or another. So, it helps you develop that body of work. And then that way, when you are applying to hey, I really want to work for Goodman Games, this is what I've done. And whether that is just with a third-party license that we're sort of open, I don't look at everything, because there was once upon a time I knew every third party, you knew every third party license. But for the most part, it does go past Joe Goodman himself. It goes past the publisher, because he has to kind of just give the okay and make sure it's not obscene or anything like that. So, because we do have an official kind of seal of approval. So no matter what you're writing, at least Joe's going to give a cursory review at the very least. He might be like, wow, this is really good. And if he'd be like, Mike, shut up and don't take a look at this, and then I will see it, and then that's really the process. So.
Yeah. That's a key thing. I mean, we really won't look at your resume or in your samples unless you've got something published. I mean, that's kind of the first checkoff box. It's but again, like I said, back in the day when we were doing this, it was very hard to get that first foot in the door. It was Dragon Magazine, it was Dungeon Magazine, and it was a few other companies. So it was hard in that part to get through that door. But when you got through that door, then it generally opened up other doors. Today, it's much easier. Anybody can self-publish, really. You can do DM's Guild. There really isn't a very strong gatekeeper for that. We do look at those things with different varying degrees of importance, I guess you would say. So if you've worked with another game company before, we're going to actually kind of probably rank that a little bit higher than if you self-publish something. We've actually had some issues with some publishing people before. So that kind of scares us off a little bit, but you have to have something. You have to have something out there that kind of shows that you can follow a process, you can kind of follow rules, because that's basically what you're doing. You're basically it's really all about communication, following the style guides, following the rules, and if you can do that and hit your deadline and everything, we're gonna love you.
That's if we speaking as developers who are overseeing product, we love freelancers who can take advice, and they can take, because part of our job is reading manuscripts and saying, okay, this works better if we swap this thing around here, or maybe switch this out here, or we can type the language here. If you think that everything is coming out of your computer or however you're doing it is golden and should not be touched, then I'm sorry. You should be self-publishing. You should not be more need to work for somebody else, because you can't take advice.
Yeah, so my teacher had you have to take feedback, and it's not personal, because you have to write stuff that is not going to get used potentially, right? And you have to take feedback and be okay with it. And we say writing is hard because you're vulnerable. You're actually putting yourself out there, and so it's kind of a painful, vulnerable process. But if you love it, but you have to be, like Michael said, you have to be able to take feedback and personalize it, and understand that everything you write might not get used. Might end up in the bin.
Right. I can guarantee if you do get development from any sort of like a development or anything like that, what we are telling you is something that somebody has told us at one point, and somebody else has been told from a long line. So this is all coming from many, many years of hard knowledge. Whether we've gone through that ourselves or that. So being able to take that constructive criticism, being able to be
And that's an asset. I mean, it's a real asset when we find people who are very open to that feedback and willing to alter what they've sent us, and sometimes rewrite entire sections, or sometimes just omit sections or whatever. That's important, because again, the ease of working with. If we're butting heads and it's like, all right, we'll finish up this project, but we're probably not going to look favorably at the next project. Kind of along those lines too, I want to touch on word counts. So you'll probably hear that a lot about word counts.
Word count and hitting deadlines, right?
Yes, word count and hitting deadlines. So there are a few things you can do automatically. It doesn't matter how good of a writer you are or anything. And we're having a moment over here. And some of those things are be on time. And if there's a problem with being on time, don't communicate the day of. Please communicate before the day of, like 2 weeks before. If you know you're not going to make it, the sooner you tell us, the better we will be able to shift gears and move things around. And we always shift gears and move things around. Our schedule is so fluid. Yes.
Chris, do you want to speak a little to the domino of steps that make deadline stuff?
Exactly. So the key thing, especially in one of the earlier things you're probably not going to get assigned your own book. There's going to be other writers probably working on the book. Brian can attest to this, Rick can attest to this. So if you're going to miss your deadline, it doesn't mean we stop and the project doesn't move. It just means we shift our attention over to the 4 or 5 people that hit the deadline, and then we're like, okay, you're good, we'll give you extra 2 weeks, or what's going on, what do we need to do to make this work? And occasionally there are times, we get it, you're a freelancer, life happens, we've all been there, all of us have been there, and it's funny, Joe used to, not be so sympathetic to things until he had kids. When he had kids, he was like, I get it now. He's like, I understand why sometimes deadlines aren't hit, and there's that mutual understanding and everything. So it's fine. Again, if you communicate effectively with the designer that you're working with the the person who's herding the cats, if you will, there's generally not a problem. Generally not a problem. But it's one of the few things that you can do to make sure that you touch all those bases. So the last thing I want to say, word counts is the next thing that's very important to you. And if your word counts a lot, sometimes people are like, "What's a word count?" That's the first conversation.
That's how many words I count when I'm getting paid, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So and so obviously, if you're being paid per word, most people are going to be like, "Well, he only asked for 10,000 words, but if I give him 20,000, I just doubled my pay." It doesn't work that way. Yes. It does not work that way at all. There's a reason why we gave you that word count, and it's usually a very important reason that's tied to money and publishing decisions and all kinds of things like that. So, for example, one of the books we had 7 writers working on one book, and we were like, all right, 20,000 words per, no more. Because if they all overshot their word count by 10,000, we just added another 70,000 words to the book, and it's probably never going to get published. So a general accepted range of when we say word count is plus or minus 10%. So if you're assigned 10,000 words, you got about 1,000 words either way that you can play with. If I did my math right there,
Yes.
I think I did. Thank you. Because I am. Yeah, there's
Well,
a reason
we're
I'm a
not
writer.
math.
Yeah, we're not math motions. So keep that in mind. So 15,000 words is not good, and on the same side, 6,000 words might not be good either. So it might be fine, but it's probably we probably slotted 10,000. Sometimes we can then take, like, if you come a few thousand short, and another person goes a few thousand over, and we really like their stuff, we'll like, all right, it works out. But then it gets into complicated math.
But in general, it's either better to be slightly under or on top, because once we get the manuscript there, once part of the development process will be like, this kind of ends abruptly, so we need to add a little something here, or this is like a really great idea. We can flesh this out. I love what this is intimating, but getting another 500 words per page is really great. So it's better to have that wiggle to be able to add something to a manuscript, because like I say, once you get like a 1,500 word, whatever, it's a big manuscript. It's always easier to add than it is to subtract. So once you start kind of whittling down, and you're like this. Everybody has seen a movie where you're just like, wow, you could tell this movie was intended to be 2 hours. They trimmed it down to 90 minutes. I have no idea where the subplot went. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah. Anybody? You guys have anything you want to jump in on that?
I'd just say, writing, just write as much as you can. Like, the word count can be a very scary number, and you have to just be writing all the time and be comfortable in writing all the time. So keep a journal, keep whatever. Just try to write all the time, because the word count can be very kind of intimidating when you first start out. So 10,000, 20,000, how would I ever get there?
Yeah.
Once you're experienced.
And just to circle back to development, and this may be specific to Goodman Games, but another way to reframe that conversation is that you guys are always trying to make us, freelancers, look as good as possible. Mm-hmm. And so, if you have feedback from me, it's going to make my manuscript look better, and then by the time it makes it to the editor, it'll be even more polished, so that the better I can take feedback from you guys, the better, cooler I'm going to look in print.
Right, exactly.
And to follow up on that, then the next assignment you get, please don't make the same mistakes. If we give you that feedback, we're kind of taking the extra time to give you that feedback because we want to work with you more. And then we want you to incorporate that feedback into the next assignment that you do. And we would love to see a very nice growth curve there of seeing that where we don't even have to have that conversation, and we get to the point where you send us a submission and we're like, yep, looks good. And then they're like, whoa, I sent you that submission 3 weeks ago. Is it okay? It's like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's already in editing. It's like, we didn't even need to reach out to you because it was pretty much good to go. So that's where we hope to get with everybody down the road.
Right. If you no matter who you're working with, whether you're working with Goodman Games or you're working with somebody else, or you get a chance to work. I work for everybody possible. Like when I started, I was hungry, and everybody, you want to work this job? Sure, crap, I'll take it. But most likely they will give you some sort of editorial guidelines or style guidelines or something. Like this is the format that we use. These are not suggestions. Okay, it's like everybody makes mistakes. Like okay, it might have like formatted this wrong way or who knows, in between editions, things that might have completely changed or whatever like that. But the more that you adhere to that, you make the editor's job happy, you make the developer's job happy. And making other people happy in this industry means that, oh yeah, they're really easy to work with, so I've got something, I know they can, hit something. I mean, in some cases, it's better to be a consistent, solid, mediocre writer than it is to be like a wild card. Because I know there are people in this industry who come in here and they have a very full head of themselves, and they're like, oh, don't try to tell me what to do. It's like, if you don't get in the way of my artistic vision, some of those people don't work for us anymore. I mean, if we're telling you something, it's not because we're pains in the ass for being arbitrary or anything. There's a purpose. But see, we're doing it. We're telling you to do something that somebody else has told us to do, which comes from like the art lessons.
When we say Times New Roman font size 12, there's a reason for all of that. And if you don't do that and do it in your own, it's an extra step that we have to do. Or we need to communicate it back to you and say, can you please put it in this? And
if you submit a manuscript in papyrus, I
yes.
literally come to your house and burn it down.
So.
Comic Sans,
So we do have style guides, and there's a reason we have style guides, and we get it. They're not interesting to read, and they're longer than they probably should be. And we don't expect everybody to hit everything on the style guide, but we want it to look mostly, and then circling all the way back to about knowing our product line. Again, that's the best thing you can do. I mean, get a couple of our modules. If you want to write for the DCC side, you should have a few DCC adventures, and you should see how they go, because that's probably how we want them. We want, a background. We want, adventure hooks. We want, encounter 1 to look like this, encounter 2, 3, 4, and the whole 9 yards. It's not to say that we always do it that way, but that's what's familiar, and that's probably going to give you kind of a leg up when you're doing it. So questions, please. And again, this is your guys' time. You've got us up here for the next 15 minutes or so.
Get past all of you to get out of here. So,
yes.
Okay. I have 2 questions if nobody has anything. I don't want to eat up your time though. First question is, I recently paid for a consultant about an adventure I'm launching a game on. I'm a co-writer on it. Do y'all do consulting on I pay you to look at my adventure, you give me feedback?
No. Unfortunately, we can't do that. I mean, it's a great idea. Literally, Chris and I are working right now. Like, I'm currently editing a manuscript with my feet. But yeah, I mean, if that is part of the process of working with a developer, but we don't do kind of outside of it. I mean, if you do have stuff and fellow gaming people who are also trying to work in the profession, same thing with any sort of writers group or anything like that. I do encourage you to bounce ideas, bounce manuscripts over there, because half the part of doing our development jobs is having another set of eyes on the manuscript. Because everybody's been there. It's like, I know what this means perfectly because I know what I'm putting down here. But once you have another like that, there's so many times I'll get a thing. It's like, oh, and what? They have to make a strength check to open this door, and there's no DC.
Yeah.
I don't know what the strength check is supposed to be.
Okay, great. Because I was going
Play
to.
test. So I run an adventure and I DM'd it, and then I gave it to somebody else to DM. And giving it to somebody else to DM, exactly what Michael's saying. I got better feedback when I gave it to somebody else to DM.
Because
That's better. That's the best consulting that you can use.
Yep.
And that was going to be my second question. How much playtest do you recommend?
As much as we possibly can, and with as many other people as possible.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
It's having another person, it's just having another people on. And we all know players, they will come up with ideas of things that we did not even. You can't. I mean, when you're putting a manuscript, this is actually more like how to write adventures that don't suck. But you can't account for anything. So you just have to kind of pick the most likely thing and then just go with God. If they figure this out, hopefully they can figure it out. All right, so we weaponize a spider and we put them on roller skates. So there's no way you can put that without eating into C word count above.
Yeah, but and our awesome editor Tim, he was great for catching things like this. And this is some of the things that sometimes you don't catch it in playtesting. But there was like a circumstance where we had a 60-foot wall, and then they had like blowguns on top of the wall. And then he actually did the math. He did the Pythagorean theorem thing, where he's like, you do realize they're all at long range, and there's like no chance they're gonna hit the PCs because they're just like little frog folk, and they're never gonna hit. And it's like, okay, that's good feedback. And it's like, so it's like, all right, give them short bows because, or lower the wall or
really long blowtorch.
or something, yeah. So, but it's like things like that where you could write it and you think it's great, and it's like, but when you get it to the table or you get Tim look at it, either or, you find those holes in it, and sometimes that's we just believe that there's not enough playtesting done in the industry. We believe that a lot of things are just not playtested. We really try to get.
Why do you think that is? Because
It's a time thing. It's really hard. There's a lot of times when the person who wrote it has to play test it just because they don't have access to another group, or there's just not enough time, and a lot of times it's totally acceptable to send us the submission before the deadline and say, oh, I'm play testing it a week later or 2 weeks later. There's always time to go back and do those tweaks, and that we could already be in the development side of it. And then we get an email, oh, hey, I play tested it this weekend. I think you did that actually, I think. And then you were like, here's the feedback, and then we'll just then
Everybody got it.
incorporate
And I was like,
Yeah.
ooh.
Yeah, gotta rethink some of those things.
But on the same note, I know Brendan LaSalle, we had a conversation. He's like, I have an adventure I want to pitch you, but I'm still playtesting. I've only run it about 30 times. Well, that's Brendan. I wouldn't run anything 30 times. I bore the hell out of myself running something 30 times.
So did we answer your questions? You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, excellent. So please let there be more questions.
I mean, we can keep talking.
I could.
I have a weird one. Like, is a module like considered fiction or non-fiction?
Fiction, I think. Okay, I'm guessing fiction. Is there-
Because it's genre.
Actually,
It's its own genre.
It's yeah. I was going to say is that doing professional adventure design is this unholy marriage between writing fiction and doing technical writing.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to do something which is very evocative, but at the same time it has to be absolutely clear, so anybody picking it up can, with a little bit of understanding, put the bookcase together. Without having parts of it.
You have to be creative, but then you have to be able to do all the boring stuff. Like your grammar has to be perfect, your style, follow the style guide.
Yeah.
So you have to have all of the technical writing, clear language, all of this, but then you have to have like really good creativity.
The thing about working in an industry field which is only 50 years old is that there's still the rest of the world is still kind of adapting to it. It doesn't have like a long literary tradition.
Yeah, it really is. And also, like, the narratives that you guys are reading out loud, it's like pure, right? And then the speed is so inaccurate.
Doing any sort of game writing, it's like writing a story, except you have no control over the protagonist. It's like you're literally drawing everything else except for the protagonist, which anyone who writes fiction will tell you is exactly the stupidest idea that you have whatsoever. God knows if you're writing fiction that the characters take on a life of their own, but literally in this case they have a life of their own, and some of us are drunk. Actually, I wonder, Harley, you told me a great idea about breaking into the industry, and what you told me is that because you have a good story about how you got involved in this. But if you want to break into the professional gaming industry, there is a hole in the wall that is exactly your shape, right? And you have to do something to find that hole, and then you slip through that hole, and as soon as you get through it, we come along and nail it shut, and nobody else gets through that hole ever again. The old idea about slipping the manuscript over the transom, just like once that manuscript's over that, now we have now bricked over the transom, all right? So hopefully what we're giving you tonight is your chance to, that tool to find that hole, to get through the wall and get in the industry.
We had a question back there.
Oh, I have one. So, my son sitting next to me is going to be starting at George Mason University in like
Congratulations.
Thank you.
in like a week.
Nice.
And
Go ahead.
I'm planning on doing like the literary magazine. How would something be written in the literary magazine be weighted against something that would be like on DM skill or something like that?
That would be higher. And I'll be honest with you, DM skill, in our opinion, there's really not a lot of gatekeeping going on there. I mean, it's really like self-publishing. I mean, and so I mean, we will look at it and we will consider that being published, but I'll be honest with you, that's pretty far down the list. We want to see it because that does show that you have the dedication, that you started something and finished it and got it out there, and you did follow all the rules and everything, because that is part of what we're doing. But again, it's the opposite problem that we had when we were breaking in. There was so few opportunities to get through that door. Today, there's many opportunities to get them through. You've seen the size of the exhibit hall and how many companies are in there. And then you got the M's Guild, self-publishing, kickstarting, etc. The problem is it's almost too easy, and now it's hard to get noticed. It's hard to, everybody can do it, so how do you get that, those top 5%, how do you find them? I'll be honest with you, when we did our open call, we had over 100 people respond. I mean, it was hard because most of them were qualified. All right, the 50% were easy to kind of eliminate. But once you got through that first 50%, you really could have taken any of them, and it really got down to splitting hairs and everything. So we would consider that, definitely a tier above. So, but really, try and get yourself out there as much as you can, even if it's newsletters or school papers or something like that. Just something where you're creating. Preferably somebody's editing it, somebody's laying it out, and it's actually out there for like public consumption. We'll even consider websites and blogs, that blog word again. But again, we don't also, that's somebody literally putting something up on a website and there's really no oversight in it. We just take that as a little bit lower. So scores lower on the rubric.
But it's always, if you're putting something, you're self-publishing something, and it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
There's the old saying is like you have your entire life to write your first novel and then 6 months to write your sequel. So you can work on that initial thing that and you can either have someone hire somebody as a consultant to help develop it, or you can share it with your writing group, or you can play test or something like that. You can make that's your best foot forward, and that can be your A game. It's like, hey, I wrote this thing, and whether it's like just an awesome monster, actually it's like what Chris and I were saying, the shorter something is, it's like more chance that we have a chance at a busy day to take a look at it. So if you're going to send it I've built my world, which I've been running since 19 whatever.
We don't want it.
I can tell you the backstory where
sassafras
comes from, and
until we do an open call where we ask for that, we do not want your campaign setting. And we're not saying that you don't think your campaign setting is not awesome, and you haven't spent 10 years developing everything. It's just not what we're looking for. We don't publish campaign settings. We're not. Someday we might put that open call out there and look for the next Forgotten Realms for DCC, but that's not what we're looking for right now. So.
If anytime you're submitting something to someone, you consider yourself, assume the person reading it is on fire, and they have that amount of time to look at it. Yep. Most likely there's other stuff going on, and the quicker they can look at it, you're like, oh, hey, this is really good.
So can folks anticipate open calls being used again in the future to find talent?
It's always a situation of seeing fluid development.
It really depends on the workload. It really depends on how busy our writers are and everything. I always say that is we're always looking for more people. I'm not sure in the next 6 months we'll be doing another open call. But
start working on monsters.
But spoiler alert, you might want to start working on monsters and sending us them. But part of the process.
Don't make them undead.
What we're doing today, talking to us.
Or the snakes.
No construction. Snake. Oh yeah, she's got a thing with snakes. Oh my god. So our tower will do that to you. So 600 pages.
I have so much respect for Indiana Jones.
So but so that's part of what obviously what we're doing today is come talk to us and everything, making that connection today, and then you can certainly shoot us an email. We have, I don't know if you wrote business cards or not, so
I do actually.
I actually have business cards too, so we'd be happy to give you guys business cards so you can actually email us directly. Please give us at least a week after Gen Con because we're not going to remember anything that happened.
2 weeks in my case.
Yeah, 2 weeks would probably be better. 2 weeks would be better. And then just start off with the, hey, I went to your seminar at Gen Con, and
you spoke so eloquently.
Yeah.
You look good in that t-shirt.
So we didn't scare you off. So
are the style guides publicly available?
No, they are not.
No, they are not. So we'll send you the style guides. That's when you're through the door. When you get the style guide, that means you've been kind of accepted.
And the other good thing about being in the door is like once you've been working for a while, and once you have established stuff, that thing about slightly more word count or being 2 weeks late or something like that, you start cutting you more slack.
Yes, Harley can attest to that.
By your own admission. See, this is like I know Harley's life, and so when I have something, I know whatever I give Harley is going to be amazing, and then I just know it's going to be on Harley time.
But I appreciate you guys advocating for the writers, and in my case, giving that.
I just say it's like because in our case, I don't know how Wizards game design. You
No, it's
could get a degree.
for nobody, right?
Yeah.
So you could be a little bit more optimistic. I mean, because
It's gonna get better.
Maybe it is going to get better.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But I mean, and I know I certainly, in my previous career, I really enjoyed, one of the best things about it was mentoring people right out of college. That's why all the luck to you and everything. I got energy from that. I got energy working with people 20 years younger than me and just seeing them come out of school bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and then knocking them down and beating them down with the system.
Like
So-
vampires.
Exactly.
Live off your-
But I love doing that with the writers too, and maybe a couple of the writers might even say a kind word or two or not. But really, I look at this as kind of a mentoring. It's like, especially folks who might not have a whole lot of experience in it, but if they've got the passion, that's what we want. We want people that want to do it, that aren't just looking for a paycheck or I just want some money or whatever, because we don't consider that to be good motivation. We want people to be like, I love your game so much, I just want to see my name in print, and I'm willing to, you know, work with you guys for the next year plus to get that. How do I have to do it, you know? And be persistent at it. If you send in something and it's not up to, you know, take that feedback and then let's work on it and everything. We're willing to do that when we have the time. Sometimes we have more time than others, but you know, the monster book we did that for because the monster book was perfect. It was nice little bite-sized pieces. You compartmentalize, you know, monster, and that's how we kind of approached it. So that worked much better than like, you know, Dark Tower, which was a completely different beast that we did.
I mean, I will say this about working for Goodman Games. Now, the Goodman Games is the country I have worked for the longest in my entire life. And I can honestly say, for the first time in my life, I actually like all of my coworkers. And I've never been able to say that at anything. I think it's because we come from, like, we've all kind of gone through this. I mean, not only do we have the shared love of, you know, what we do for a hobby and you know, and now hopefully do professionally, and then once we do professionally, we never want to do it as a hobby again. But yeah, I mean, you know, God, I love this. Yeah, we've just kind of met, so that, you know, come on,
So I had to write lots of academic stuff over the year, and as far as Chris goes, so Chris's feedback is as more precise actually than any academic editing feedback I've ever got. So when you get feedback from Chris, it's absolutely spot on. Like laser guided feedback. There's no messing at all. And
You getting this on tape?
And it comes from a place of trust. Like that's the other thing about feedback. It's not like my mother-in-law. Like if my mother-in-law something to read, it's just gonna be like, don't put that on tape. This is coming from a place of trust. So like if somebody is giving you feedback, you know they're coming from a good place. And like Chris's feedback, like I said, is absolutely laser guided precision feedback. I mean, it's really impressive.
We really, I mean, our goal, Mike and myself, is to make the adventures better. You might not see that. You know, you kind of got to trust us with all of our decades of experience that we kind of know what the fans want. Even though there's a lot of times there's that, you know, I did it when I was just busting in and everything. I was the same way. I was like, no, it's perfect. This is exactly what it is. But you learn real quickly that they will just cut huge parts out of it. And, you know, it's like, okay, that's not what the vision was, but, you know, I'm willing to accept that to get the job done. So, do you want to say something?
Well, I was gonna say that's really impressive. Like I've been kind of following the 5e and picking up a bunch of some older modules, the newer modules, and you know, maybe not from the writer's standpoint, it's written this stuff, but from somebody who's reading this stuff, I'm like, wow, you guys really have it zeroed down. And as a dungeon master, you can pick it up and you know where to look, you know where the writing is, you know it's going to be messed up and it's going to be something twisted, and it's not going to be the same as any other module you run.
Yeah.
And that's why writing that.
Thank you. Did you get that on tape? Because that was brilliant too. Awesome. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I will say, you know, as a company, we realizes that, you know, especially as role playing is growing and is becoming, you know, less from the niche hobby that it was when many of us started, and now it's become more partially culturally. Expectations change. Like the stuff that was written in 1980, like if you were giving to somebody who'd been playing, you know, for 2 years now, they're like, what the hell is this? This is absolutely useless and everything. So we try to evolve and as a company, as the industry changes, and part of that evolves in the fact is that we do want people who are, you know, who've only been writing, only been gaming for a couple of years or anything, because they're bringing a perception or something that we don't necessarily have. And you know, there are game companies they are literally publishing the same thing they've been publishing for 30, 40 years. I mean, there are games like there are people in that vendor. I'm like, they're still in business. Like who is like? I've never seen anybody in public like play their game in anger. You know, I'm like, I don't know who's buying this stuff or anything. I'm not going to mention any names. Maybe each company can figure out what I'm talking about. But so so we are, like I said, so we are looking for new people. We do want to bring new people. We want like new ideas, new fresh, and it has nothing to do with how old you are or what it is. It's just we are looking for new people to come in and bring things that like what we do, new sets of eyes and something we may not be seeing.
So read a lot. Read a lot.
Yep. And I will give you this as I was at the discussion with Bill. Read a lot, but know your fantasy rules. Read fantasy in a week, but just don't read all fantasy. Don't read all the fantasy. Open it up. It's like the idea for the chain off that wasn't until I was halfway through I realized I was actually stealing from William Faulkner. That was like so as I lay dying, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. So if all you read is fantasy, the snake is just eating the tail or everything, and it's amazing what you can draw on, whether it's Western or period drama or whatever. There's you bring in information that like aha, and we're seeing that like wow, that's a great idea. Yeah, I totally lifted that from Jane Austen, but you're you're Rick, you're Ethan, so but without that, most likely then 90% of the other people reading it don't know you lifted it from Jane Austen either. So.
Do you have any other questions?
Yes, I did have a question.
Come on, Dad.
It's kind of like about the playtesting phase you talked about. How do you identify when it's like the problem with the balancing of the module, or it's the players not being smart?
Nice.
Yeah. If we could crack that nut, we'd all be in a much better place and we would need much less playtesting. But you are so right. I mean, balancing is one of those things where, I always call balancing, especially with 5e's CR rules and whatnot. It's like the Pirates Code. They're kind of guidelines, sort of, possibly. It's not, you can't plug it into a math equation and come out that's how it is. Because again, an experienced group of players, they're going to get through that encounter, unscathed probably, or they're going to figure out how to do it right. Whereas some newbies are not necessarily. That's the beauty of role-playing games and why we play the games, because you do not know what's going to happen. You're like, oh, this puzzle is so easy. Oh, that's another thing we should talk about, puzzles. If you think the puzzle is easy, it's still too hard. And again, don't make, that's a whole nother seminar. That's a puzzle seminar next year.
We'll run that next year.
But yeah, that is an absolute challenge. Being aware of that is important, so that way, and that's why ideally you want to play test it a couple of times. In the perfect world, you play test it with expert level players, moderate, and then beginner players who've never played the game before. That's probably not going to happen, but if you could try to kind of hit a couple of those groups, you're probably going to do better. But just any kind of play testing is going to help out. So even sometimes you as the writer, just like throwing dice and just saying, all right, here's my pre-gens, and let me just see if they're going to win this fight, and get back and forth, or having one of your buddies help you do it and not run through the whole adventure just to see if the fight's balanced or something. That's going to be key. So great question. Great question.
And one of the things is like when you are playtesting, you're also rewriting. Because there may be times it's like, wow, that's a gaping plot hole that I moved in there, and like something like, something like 3 more orcs walk through the door.
Yep. If you need 3 more orcs to bust through the door, and you do that on the fly, that means you probably need more orcs in the room. So.
He has 40 hit points instead of those 10 hit points. It's like that. So.
Exactly.
I think we've actually hit the tip. Yeah. We have to vacate the presentation.
I don't think we technically have about 10 more minutes, so we will make ourselves available if you guys want to come up and talk to us one-on-one. We will need to get out of the room in a couple of minutes, but we can talk in the hallway or for a few minutes or whatever. But if you have anything and you want to talk a little bit more, we'll try and do that. But otherwise, thank you everybody.
We know your time is limited here at GaryCon, so Jen.
Yeah, GaryCon.
How much freer at GaryCon? So if you go to GaryCon, order me on